Let's start X-rays. So X-rays are one of the electromagnetic waves. So if you remember the electromagnetic spectrum, so there are 7 main different wavelengths, like the radio waves, microwaves, infrared rays, then the visible rays from red to violet, then UV rays, then the X-rays that we are going to study, and then the gamma rays. So these are 7 major different electromagnetic waves that we have defined, and this wavelengths this waves are arranged in the form of increasing frequency or decreasing wavelength. So wavelength here is maximum and wavelength here is minimum, frequency here is minimum, frequency here is maximum, energy here is minimum, and energy here is maximum. So in this manner the waves are arranged. So you can see clearly that X-rays are very high energetic, high frequency and low wavelength electromagnetic waves, and X-rays are very energetic, very powerful. So how are the X-rays produced, and who observed the X-rays first? So X-ray was first discovered by a German physicist called William Röntgen. And the year was 1895. So in the year 1895, this German physicist found out or discovered the X-rays first time, or observed the X-rays properly for the first time. So what happened is that he was doing some experiment, and he found out by mistake that a photographic film wrapped in light and tight black paper, when exposed through a cathode ray by a cathode ray tube, it was exposed, and some pattern was observed on the photographic plate. So initially he did not understand anything, that why is it happening, but gradually studied it, and as he did not know much about the radiation coming out of the cathode ray tube, he named it X-ray. X for unknown. Okay, so he named it X-rays, unknown rays. So X-rays are generally obtained in cathode ray tubes, or we can also call it X-ray tube. So highly energetic, first of all, highly energetic electrons, when made to strike a metal target, then EM radiation comes out. So if you want to produce X-rays, you can do one thing. You can collide very high energetic electrons with some metal, and when the metal targets absorb those electrons, so some energy is released in the form of electromagnetic radiation, and specifically in the range of X-rays. The large part of this wavelength will be in around 1 angstrom. So the wavelength of X-rays is around 1 angstrom, or around 10 to the power minus 10 meters approximately. So these rays are called X-rays. So you can obtain X-rays using high energy electrons colliding with any metal target. So another way or a proper way to obtain X-rays is by using X-ray tube, which is also called Coolidge tube, and the Coolidge tube can help in obtaining the X-ray. What you do is that you take let's say you take a glass tube, and in that glass tube, let's say you have a filament which will give off high energy electrons, and let's say you have a metal surface like this on one end. So from here electrons will be ejected. They will collide with the surface. After the collision, some electromagnetic radiations will be created which will be emitted, let's say in this direction outward. So for another important thing, this end will be this chamber will be, glass chamber will be having very low pressure, remember that. So it is quite simple to produce X-rays. Just make high energy electrons collide with the metal surface and you can observe or you can obtain the X-rays. Now after this, let's try to find out about some characteristic X-rays and continuous X-rays. So it was observed, let me first draw the graph. So a graph like this, a graph like this was observed. This is the graph between wavelength in picometers and intensity. So let's say the values are 30, 40 and so on. So here it is around 70, here it is around 80, here around 90, 50, 60. So it was observed that this graph is there when the X-rays are coming from the Coolidge tube, and this is called the K beta line and this is called the K alpha line. So this graph was observed, continuous and characteristic X-ray graph. This graph was observed when the X-rays coming out of the Coolidge tube. So when the X-rays are coming out of this Coolidge tube, so we observe that the X-rays intensities of the X-rays of different X-rays also have different wavelengths. Okay, it is not that there is only a particular wavelength of the X-ray. There is a range of wavelengths which are called the X-rays. So this is the different X-rays. These are different wavelengths of the X-rays: 40 picometer, 50 picometer, 90 picometer, and this tells us about the intensity of various wavelengths of the X-ray. So it was observed that at specific wavelengths the intensity was quite high and quite sharp, and therefore they were named K beta line and K alpha line. We will understand why K beta and why K alpha. And here this is the minimum wavelength. Okay, this is the minimum wavelength. So below this wavelength no X-ray light or intensity was observed. So this is called the cutoff wavelength. Cutoff wavelength or threshold wavelength. So it is the minimum wavelength below which no X-rays are emitted. So cutoff wavelength or threshold wavelength is the minimum wavelength below which no X-rays are emitted. So this is the cutoff or threshold wavelength. So it is observed that when the electrons are collided with metal surface in a Colles tube, then the axis coming out has this graph of intensity versus wavelength. The minimum wavelength that the X-rays has is the cutoff or threshold wavelength, below which we observe no intensity or no wavelength. Okay. Now let's try to understand these two things, continuous and characteristic X-rays. So this region is the continuous X-ray region, in which we do not have any sharp peaks, and this region is the characteristic X-ray region. Okay, so we have two region. One is the continuous X-ray region and one is the characteristic X-ray region. So continuous X-ray region and characteristic X-ray region. So characteristic X-ray region are sharply defined wavelengths where intensity is high. For example, K alpha, K beta. And continuous X-rays, all the other wavelengths where intensity varies gradually. Are called continuous X-ray. So this region is continuous X-ray region, this is characteristic X-ray, this is also characteristic X-ray region, and this is continuous X-ray region. Okay, so why do we observe this? Why is there this sharp peak some places? So we know that there are various energy levels in an atom. So let's suppose let's say this is K shell, this is L shell, this is M shell, this is N shell, and so on. So we know that there is specific energy of every shell in different atoms. For example, in hydrogen atom, the energy of K shell or first shell is minus 13.6 eV. Energy of second shell is approximately minus 3.4 eV, and so on. So these energies are quite specific. Different energy levels have different particular energies for different atoms. So for hydrogen atoms, these are the values. So what happens is that whenever the electrons jump from one orbit to another orbit, they emit or absorb specific wavelengths of light. Okay, they emit or absorb specific wavelengths of light. So we have given every transition a name. So first of all, let's say the electron jumps from K orbit to L orbit, that is first orbit to second orbit, or ground state to first excited state. Remember, this is orbit number, let's say orbit. So this is orbit number 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, but it is also called ground state. This is called first excited state. This is called second excited state. This is called third excited state, and so on. So there are two ways to name the orbit, so do not get confused with that. Now if the electron moves from k orbit to L orbit, so the wavelength that is absorbed is called the k alpha, absorbed or released is called the k alpha wavelength. Then if electron moves from k orbit to M orbit, then it is called k beta. If it moves from k to N orbit, it is called k lambda, and so on. Let's say if electron moves from L to M, then it is called L alpha. If electron moves from L to N, it is called L beta, and so on. Similarly, if it moves from M to N, it is called M alpha wavelength, or energy transition. So what we have is that whenever we have any atom, so there are specific wavelengths of light that will be absorbed or emitted, and we have named them specifically. So it is observed that in the X-ray, when it is observed, when we obtain X-rays using Collis tube experiment, Collis tube device, then the X-rays are obtained when the transition is from k alpha and k beta, that is when the transition is from k orbit to L orbit and k orbit to M orbit. So in that case X-rays are emitted, so therefore we observe a sharp intensity over there. So these are k alpha and k beta. Similarly, we will observe other energy levels also for L alpha, L beta, and so on. But most importantly for X-rays, the k alpha and k beta are the important one. So the wavelength for k alpha, the wavelength is given by Hc over change in the energy. So it is energy in k minus energy in L state, and for k beta wavelength will be Hc over energy in k minus energy in M, and same for other as well. So this is the graph that we observe, and the reason is the energy levels of the atom. Now let's understand soft X-ray and hard X-ray. So the concept is quite simple, by the way. Soft X-ray and hard X-ray. So the X-rays having low energy, or X-rays having less frequency, or X-rays having large wavelength, those type of X-rays are called soft X-rays. If the energy is less, then the X-rays are called soft X-rays. And if X-rays are having high energy or having high frequency, more frequency, or having small wavelength, then those X-rays are called hard X-rays, having more energy. Okay, so they are called hard X-rays. Obviously these are relative terms. What is high energy, what is low energy, these are relative terms, but If the X-rays are coming with high energy, we call them hard X-rays, and if the X-rays are coming with low energy, we call them soft X-rays. Now let's discuss the Moseley's law. Moseley's law. So what is Moseley's law? So Moseley was an experimental physicist. He worked in the Cavendish laboratory during 1913-1914, and he studied the characteristic X-rays, and he did some experiments on the characteristic X-rays, played a very important role in the concept of atomic number. He was the first person who suggested that we should arrange the periodic table in the order of increasing atomic number instead of atomic mass. So in those days, atomic number was not a very important parameter, but Moseley was the first person to propose it properly. So Moseley observed something and gave this formula. So we will understand this formula, but let's first write it. Root V equal to A Z minus B. Now here Z is the atomic number. Remember, Moseley was the first one to propose this property. A and B are the constants. B is a constant. A is also some constant, arbitrary constant. And this nu is the frequency. Of characteristic X-ray. Nu is the frequency of the characteristic X-ray. So he observed this graph. Moseley observed this graph. See, he did some experiments and he plot a graph between root of frequency and position number, that is the atomic number, and he observed a correlation. He observed that the graph looked like a linear line like this. So let's say these are various points that we have. So let's say 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and so on, and this frequency, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. So it is in 10 to the power root hertz. So he observed this graph. So according to him, the atomic number or position number was directly proportional to the frequency of the characteristic X-ray. So he concluded that there must be a fundamental property of an atom which increases by regular steps as one moves from one element to other, and this property was later called atomic number. So according to Moseley, once he observed this graph, he proposed that there must be a fundamental property of an atom which increases by regular steps as one moves from one element to the other element. So he proposed that when we go from one element to another element, there is a fundamental property which increases in regular steps, and this was later identified as the atomic number. it was called atomic number, and it was observed that atomic number, which is represented by Z, is equal to the number of protons in the atom. So atomic number was proposed to be this. Now let's move on to the Bragg's law. So Moseley's law was that there is a fundamental property which tells us the relation between periodic properties of elements with each other. Then Bragg's law. So according to the Bragg's law, we have this formula 2d sine theta equal to n lambda. So here d, n is any integer, lambda is the wavelength of the X-ray, d is the distance between two parallel planes and theta is the angle at which the X-rays come, angle made by X-ray beam with the surface of solid that we are studying. So what are we studying here? So let's say we have a solid surface, let's say we have some material, and we want to study the structure of that material, that how are the atoms arranged in that particular solid. So let's say we have multiple layers of the atoms, and the distance between the layers is, let's assume it is d. The distance between the layers is d, and let's say that we are we are providing some incident electrons making angle theta with the surface, and after reflection the X-rays will move like this and will make angle theta like this. So what is that we are doing here? So we are trying to observe the structure of the atoms of any particular material. We are trying to find the size of the atom or the arrangement of the atom in a particular material. Let's say this is NaCl. Let's suppose this is NaCl. So NaCl molecules will be arranged on the surface. So we are trying to find the arrangement of this NaCl molecule and the distance between various atoms in this particular structure. So how do we know that the NaCl look like? So we study using X-rays. So in solid state chemistry or solid state physics, X-rays are used to find the structure of various materials, and there is a relation between them which is given by this. So if you know the wavelength, and n is any integer, and if we want know the angle also, so we can easily find the distance between the layers of the atom. So this is very useful procedure to find the structure of any substance, solid material. Okay, so what are the properties and uses of the X-rays? So first is that X-ray uses and properties. So X-ray, First, let's discuss the uses. X-rays are diffracted by crystals. According to the Bragg's law, and X-rays are not deflected by electric or magnetic fields because it is neutral. X-ray are EM waves which are neutral. When X-rays are incident on certain materials, such as barium, platinocyanide, they cause fluorescence. That is, some light is emitted from that material. So X-ray, when incident on certain materials, make the object fluorescent. When it is passed through a gas, X-ray ionize the molecules of gas. So X-rays also ionize the gas molecules because it has high energy, so it can free up the electrons from the gas molecules. And X-rays can penetrate into several metals because it has high energy, into several metals and materials, different materials, because it has high energy. So these are the uses or properties of X-rays. Another important property is X-rays travel in straight lines in vacuum with speed 3 into 10 to the power 8 meters per second. It is an EM wave. So X-rays are used in industries and material science research for finding the structure of atoms and molecules, used for finding the faults in devices or materials, whether they have some gap or some structural defect in them. Apart from that, it is sometimes used in X-ray machines. It is used in X-ray machines for the purpose of scanning, and also sometimes used as to detect the diseases and to cure the cancer in some of the situations. So X-rays are quite useful and they help us in finding various structures and faults in various different materials.